bell rings, but this time it isn't for class. The intercom crackles, doors lock, and silence swallows the halls. For the students trapped inside, every second feels like the last. These are 3 true school lockdown stories where the real terror wasn't knowing if the threat was just outside or already in the room. The morning started like any other. The chatter of students echoed through the hallways, lockers clanging, sneakers squeaking against polished floors. Sunlight spilled through the windows, dust dancing in golden rays. Teachers moved between classrooms, bells rang on schedule, and everything felt normal. But normality is fragile. It started with a crackle over the intercom. A voice, sharp and cold, cut through the buzz of conversation. Lockdown. This is not a drill. At first, disbelief rippled through the students. Laughter? A joke? Some kind of mistake? But then came the loud, metallic click of the doors locking automatically. Panic bloomed like a dark flower. Students froze. Teachers shouted, trying to calm the chaos. But the chaos had already taken root. I remember the first instinct: hide. Desks became barricades, closets, and storage rooms hiding places. Every corner, every shadow seemed like it might conceal something watching. The silence that followed was suffocating. Outside, the usual sounds of school, footsteps, chatter, wheels on pavement, vanished, replaced by an oppressive, expectant quiet. My own breathing sounded deafening, each inhale like a drumbeat in a tune. I could hear the muffled cries of younger students, the frantic whispers of my classmates. Every creak in the ceiling, every distant shuffle, made my heart jump. Was it the janitor, a stray animal, or something far worse? Time warped. Minutes stretched into eternities. Every second was a question mark, every shadow a potential threat. Then came the first sound that truly shook me. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, outside the classroom door. Not random, not accidental. Someone, or something, was moving through the halls. My classmates pressed against walls, eyes wide, praying not to be seen, praying that the sound wasn't coming closer. The intercom remained silent after that initial announcement, leaving only the whispers of fear and the distant, rhythmic tap of those footsteps. Each tap echoed like a hammer striking my skull. I held my breath, willing my heart to stop. The seconds crawled by. Every nerve screamed to move, to flee, to do anything. But the rules were clear. Stay hidden, stay silent, survive. And then, nothing. Silence again. But now it was different. Thick, heavy, menacing. Finally, the intercom crackled back to life. Lockdown over, all clear. Doors unlocked. Teachers emerged, tense and pale. Students stumbled out, shaking, eyes wide. Relief collided with disbelief. We had survived, but the terror lingered. Even as the sun continued to stream through the windows, the halls looked different. Familiar corners felt like traps. Normal sounds, the clanging lockers, the laughter, suddenly felt alien, almost threatening. Weeks later, the memory remained vivid. Every unexpected noise, every sudden shout triggered a flashback. We thought we were safe, that school was our sanctuary. But that day, we learned how quickly safety can vanish, how fragile our sense of security really is. Some lessons, we realized, are learned in silence and in fear. The lockdown siren had barely faded when reality set in. We weren't just trapped. We were prey in a maze of familiar halls. Every doorway, every corner, every empty classroom held a potential threat. I ducked behind a row of desks in the far corner of the classroom, pressed flat against the wall, heart hammering. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting long, uneven shadows across the floor. My backpack became a makeshift shield. Every sound outside, footsteps, the distant scrape of a chair, a muted cough, made me flinch. No one spoke. No one dared breathe too loudly. We were all waiting, frozen in fear. It wasn't just the fear of what was outside. It was the not knowing. The unknown threat pressed in from every angle, invisible yet omnipresent. A bag rattled somewhere down the hall. A floorboard groaned. I could hear someone, or something, moving with precision, searching. I peeked just slightly through the sliver of space between the desk and the wall. Shadows danced on the linoleum floor, stretching and contracting with the flickering lights. My classmates were silent statues, eyes darting nervously, hands gripping the edges of furniture. Time moved differently in hiding. Seconds felt like minutes, minutes like hours. I counted my breaths one by one, willing them to stay quiet, willing my body to remain still. Every instinct screamed to move, but movement was death. And then came a sound that made the air itself feel heavy, a slow, deliberate step, closer than ever. My stomach turned. I wanted to scream, but my throat had gone dry. The air seemed to press in from all sides, and my mind raced with every possible scenario. The footsteps stopped, right outside our classroom. Silence pressed in like a physical weight. My pulse thundered in my ears, matching the rhythm of my shallow breaths. Was it over, or had we only paused the inevitable? A shadow moved across the doorframe, stretching long and impossible in the flickering light. Every muscle in my body tensed. One wrong move, one breath too loud, and it would know we were here. We stayed frozen. My fingers dug into the edge of the desk, nails biting into wood. The room seemed smaller, more suffocating. The minutes crawled by. Each creak of the floorboards, each distant shuffle, kept us on edge. Then, slowly, impossibly, footsteps retreated. A door somewhere down the hall clicked shut. I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, only to realize the terror wasn't over. It had been watching, it had been close, and it could return at any moment. When the lockdown finally ended, relief washed over us, but it was tainted with something darker. The adrenaline lingered, leaving our bodies buzzing with tension. We stepped into the hallways, now strangely unfamiliar, each corner seeming to hold a secret. Teachers ushered us out, their faces pale, voices strained. Parents arrived, their hugs tight, eyes worried. But the worst part wasn't outside. It was inside us. The feeling of being watched, of being vulnerable, clung to every one of us. Weeks later, even the simple act of walking down a hallway felt different. A floorboard out of place, a locker creak, even the bell. Every sound carried the echo of that day. Hiding in plain sight had taught us an unforgettable lesson. Terror doesn't need to be seen to be real. Even in the safest places, shadows can wait, and fear can linger long after the danger has passed. By the time the third lockdown scenario began, we had learned fear could take many forms. It wasn't the alarm, the doors locking, or even the frantic whispers. It was the unknown. The thing you couldn't see, couldn't hear clearly, couldn't prepare for. I crouched behind a row of lockers, fingers pressed into the cold metal, heartbeat hammering like a drum in my ears. The hall outside stretched endlessly, shadows pooling under flickering lights. Each movement of the blinds, each distant thump made the air feel heavier, more alive, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Something or someone was out there, and we had no idea what it wanted. It started with small sounds, a whisper too low to understand, a floorboard groaning in rhythm with footsteps, then a scraping sound, like nails on tile, coming closer. We froze, barely daring to breathe. Every instinct screamed to run, but running would betray our location. The silence returned, but it was deceptive. The quiet throbbed with tension, each heartbeat echoing like a warning. We communicated in glances, fingers pointing, eyes wide with terror. One wrong move could make the unseen threat aware we were there. I pressed myself closer to the lockers, listening intently. Muffled voices echoed down the hall, distorted and disorienting. Was it the janitor, another student, or something far worse? The ambiguity gnawed at me, turning fear into paralysis. Then it happened. The faint sound of footsteps paused outside the locker row. My pulse raced, my chest tight, as every nerve screamed that it was aware of us. Shadows shifted, too subtle to see clearly, yet impossible to ignore. Minutes felt like hours. The intercom remained silent, the hall devoid of life except for the ominous presence lingering just out of reach. The unknown threat could be anyone or anything. Every sound, a cough, a whisper, a locker door creak, was amplified into a potential predator. My mind raced with scenarios, none of them safe, and yet we stayed hidden. Fear had become a cage, tighter and more suffocating than the locked doors ever could be. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the footsteps faded. The silence returned, but it was heavier this time, pressing into our bones. The unseen threat had left, or had it? That question lingered long after the noise had gone, leaving a shadow on our sanity that wouldn't disappear. When the lockdown was finally lifted, the relief was immediate, but it was shadowed by a lingering unease. Students emerged cautiously, faces pale, eyes scanning every corner. The familiar hallways felt alien, tainted by the memory of unseen eyes and the echo of footsteps that might never be explained. Police escorted us out, parents waiting anxiously. Yet, despite safety being restored, the sense of vulnerability remained. Weeks later, I would jump at the smallest sound, feel my pulse quicken at the slightest shadow. School had been transformed from a safe haven into a place of unpredictability. The lesson was chilling but clear. The greatest terror often isn't the thing you see, it's the thing you don't. The unseen threat can linger long after the alarm stops, haunting your thoughts, your movements, even your sense of security. Even now, when I walk those halls, I remember the silence before the storm, the fear hiding in plain sight, and the unseen danger that can turn any ordinary day into a nightmare. As the alarms faded and the doors finally unlocked, relief washed over everyone. But the fear never truly left. The echoes of footsteps, the shadows in the hallways, and the unknown lurking just beyond our sight stayed with us. These 3 school lockdown stories remind us that danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes the most terrifying threats are the ones we can't see, the ones we can only feel. Stay aware, stay prepared, and never underestimate the unseen. If you've ever experienced something like this, share your story in the comments. And remember, safety isn't just rules and alarms. It's vigilance, courage, and the human spirit that refuses to be broken.